Welcome to the Fall 2020 Ladies Big Book Study Recording Series. My name is Kimberly and I am a recovered alcoholic. I am the facilitator of a tri-weekly Big Book Study for ladies only, and we record each session so we can share the knowledge along with you. What we do is we read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous line by line. We pause on each page and have discussion time to share our experience, our strength, and our hope on each page. You are more than welcome to follow along in this series and do the work of the steps of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you do need support at any time, please reach out to me in the Contact Us area of my YouTube channel, and we're happy to provide you with support. The online recordings are open to men and women. Do not be discouraged, gentlemen. Our ladies' point of view may offer you a different perspective. So welcome. I hope you enjoy. So we are continuing on in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are on page 25, and it goes a little something like this. There is a solution. Almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the process requires for its successful consummation. But when we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, of which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And if we had passed into the region from which there was no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. The other, to accept spiritual help. This we did because we honestly wanted to, and were willing to make the effort. All right, so let's break down that page. So at the beginning, of course, it says there is a solution, and it's in italics, which means that's important. Italics were very expensive to print back then, so it's something we want to pay attention to, and this is probably the most important, because if we are hopeless, we want to have a little hope that maybe there is another way, and here it tells us very point blank, there is a solution. It also tells us right away a big kind of warning sign. Most of us don't like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, and the confession of sins which this process requires for its successful consummation. What's a consummation? Well, let's ask the dictionary. And it says a consummation is the act of making a marriage or a relationship complete, or the point at which something is complete or finalized. So you haven't done this program unless you've actually done these three things. And as we read in the book, and it tells us all the time, this is just a beginning. So for me, and this is my personal opinion, my interpretation of the book, I always like to say that when I say things because people can get their feathers up. The steps are not to be worked after you've done them. So what the program actually tells us is we do a set of steps, and that's a beginning. And then we need to apply these principles in all of our areas of our lives. So when people are like, oh, I am 7 years sober, and this month I'm working on step 7. I've worked on my set of steps when I did it. That was my beginning. Now I'm to practice these principles in all my affairs. These principles, not these steps. So I've learned the principle of step 4, taking a personal inventory. I've learned the principle of step 5, in which I'm going to confess to another person and to God anything that makes me feel Step 6 and 7, where I'm identifying any defects of character or conduct that's unbecoming, or any fears that crop up, and then I ask for them to be taken away. Step 8 and 9, where if I've done any harm, I'm going to recognize that I've done harm, and I'm going to correct that harm right away. And then step 10, which is the combination of 4 through 9, and I'm going to continue to do this throughout my day, each and every day, all the time. Continue. Not once in a while, do it. And then 11, I'm going to continue to do prayer and meditation to improve my connection to God. And 12, I'm going to work with others. These aren't steps I work independently. It's the way I live my life. It's a design for living that works. What we have here in a set of steps is being taught it. So similar to if I go to med school, I make my beginning in medical school. I learn the principles of medicine. And then what do? I go and I do my practicum. And I grow in effectiveness. And I learn it in practical experience. And then what do? I start doing it. I see patients. I diagnose them. I read medical journals. And any new information that comes up, I get aware of it. And I continue to practice my trade. And I grow. I don't keep going back to medical school. I just keep growing in understanding, keep connecting to God, keep practicing these principles in all of my affairs, and I do okay. So when people are like, oh, I'm working on my steps again, it's like, oh, that sucks. You didn't get it the first time? We got to understand what we're doing, and then we just apply it. And if we need to understand it a little more, we learn more. And as we grow, it has a different meaning to us. And so I think that's really important to make that distinction, because a lot of people are like, I live in step 11 each and every day. Okay, what about the rest of it? Or, I practice 10, 11, and 12. Okay, it actually tells us to practice all of these principles in all of our affairs, and so we can keep going with that. And we have been approached by people in whom the problem has been solved. People in whom the problem has been solved. If you have a sponsor who hasn't had their problem solved, they probably shouldn't be passing on their information. You don't go to medical school and have an attending physician or a practicum student teaching the class. You have a professor, right? So we want to make sure we have the proper people teaching the proper tools and the proper steps along the way. We lay the spiritual tools at our feet. Why? Because the newcomer has their head down. They haven't gained the utter confidence that's talked about on page 14. They haven't had that spiritual awakening. They're not walking with their shoulders back and their head held high because they are recovered. They're new. They're suffering. They're coming in here broken and shriveled and looking at the floor because they've got no worth. They've got no self-esteem. They're crumbled and they're in the basement. I'm not going to put the best cookies on the top shelf in the cookie jar. I'm going to put it where the people who eat cookies are going to eat them and be able to get them. Because otherwise, I'm always getting up to get the cookies for them. And we want to kind of make them self-sufficient so they can get the cookies off the shelf themselves. So we lay it at their feet where they can access it. And then we talk about the spiritual experience, which has an asterisk, which means we're going to go to the back of the book and read that and discuss that separately, just so we know for discussion. And it says, the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. The way which is indeed miraculous is He does things for me that I can't do for myself. He has given me this entire change of psyche in which I do things that I wouldn't normally do. I handle situations in ways I wouldn't normally handle them. Things don't affect me in ways that they normally would affect me. Right? I'm able to sit here today. You wouldn't know that I had a major life event yesterday. Why? because I trust in God. My fears have been removed. I'm not stuck in self. I have God reliance. And so, yeah, yesterday happened. Some really crappy things took place, but that's okay. It's not my will. I'm not manipulating, plotting, changing, planning. I'm just at peace. I trust God. I know everything's going to be okay, and I don't have fear. So my life isn't a revolving hamster wheel of nonsense. I'm like, okay, yesterday happened. I'm in a new day, a new situation. I woke up perfectly fine. Nothing, no scrape off my back. And it's a new experience, and it's amazing. And that's me living in that fourth dimension, a spiritual realm where I trust in God, not myself. And it's amazing. If you are seriously alcoholic, as we were, we were alcoholic. If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were is past tense, I am no longer alcoholic. I am no longer suffering from alcoholism. I've gone through this spiritual course of action, had a spiritual experience, and now I am a recovered alcoholic. We believe there is no middle of the road solution. I tried that. Didn't get me very far. A lot of people have tried a middle of the road solution. A lot of people have cherry picked the solution they like, and guess what? They didn't get rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. They're miserable. You can tell who's happy and who's not. And you can tell who's had a spiritual experience and you can tell who has not. You can see it in how they present themselves. You can see it in how they act. You can hear it in the way that they talk. You hear them talk about God a lot more and about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous a lot more than about their struggles. And, you know, we were in a region from which there was no human aid. We had two alternatives. If you are hopeless, if you are beyond human aid, there's two choices. You can go on to the bitter end, or you can accept a spiritual course of action. Pretty dang simple. I highly recommend the spiritual course of action. I haven't seen anybody who highly recommends the other, and I have never heard anybody come back and tell us that they found a better way and that life was freaking amazing. And let me tell you, an alcoholic who found a better way, whose life was amazing, would come back and tell us and throw it in our face. And to date, I have not had anyone come back and tell us it was freaking amazing out there. Time after time, you got to remember, I'm an analyst. I look for stats. These people come back and they tell me it effing sucks each and every time. So, you know, if someone comes back, they're like, oh my God, I figured it out. It's amazing. I actually, you know what, that's a lie. I had one guy call me and he relapsed and he said everything was amazing and he had it covered. He's now homeless and he's still struggling. And it's been almost 2 years this Christmas. So someone did actually tell me they had it under control. And I can tell you that that experience went to the pooper really quick. Anne Marie. You're muted. It didn't work. Oh.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm Anne Marie. I'm an alcoholic. I really love that what they say here is that the process requires for its successful consummation and that there's no middle of the road solution. The easier, softer way is given lip service. You know, the fact that the easier, softer way doesn't work is given, I find, a lot of lip service. I've had problems with former sponsees who simply hooked on to the word, these are the steps that we suggest. What is it on 59? These are the steps. There's an actual turn of phrase that
suggested as a program of recovery,
which are suggested as a program of recovery, and they hook onto that word suggestion. And God help you if you try to tell them, no, you have to do it for it. You know, no. I've got someone who's 32 years in the program, and she simply will not let it go. She's forever cleaning somebody else's side of the street. Yeah, but they were not nice to me. And I just can't get through to them. So I have in the past fired sponsees and said, come back when you're ready to actually do the program. I don't believe that there's another way myself. And, you know, if there was another program and it worked, I'd say go and do it, but do it. If you join someone's game, you don't join to change the rules. You join to play by their rules. You want your own rules? Make up your own game. And I have to remember this page. And from 59, bring them back to 25. You know? Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've touched on this before. It doesn't say the steps are suggestions. That's not what it says. It says as suggested program of recovery. If I go to the opera, they give me a program. What do they do off that program? They play every bloody song. Because a program is a collective of something. So this is a suggested program of recovery. The steps are not suggestions. They're clear-cut directions on how we recovered. But people bastardize it. They're like, the steps are just suggestions. No. The steps are clear-cut directions on how we recovered, and it's a suggested program of recovery. If you want to do another program of recovery, go ahead. Tell me how it goes. Haven't seen anybody else succeed yet. They keep coming back. But it doesn't say that these steps are suggested. These are suggested as a program of recovery, and a program is a collective. It's a grouping. You don't go to the opera and say, oh, today this is the program, and we're going to do number 4, 9, 11, and then we'll do number 1 at the end. They don't do that. They play the whole thing in its entirety. Jenny D. Oh, you're not unmuted. There you go.
Okay, now I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Okay, an observation and then a question. When you talked about the 4th dimension of existence, and you just explained the 4th dimension of existence by your experience perfectly, because I've always thought or believed that the 4th, because, when I first read this, I went, what's the 4th dimension? And everybody has all these very, out there ideas of what the 4th dimension is, and or different. And then the one that came to me that was really simple was what you said. It's living in a spiritual realm, which means you can only live in the right now. The 4th dimension is the right now. So whatever happened to you happened yesterday, but this is right now. So you're okay. And I know when something happened to me yesterday or last week and I'm still all tied up about it, I'm not in the 4th dimension. I got to get back there. So that's what it is to me. And then I have a question for you about when you talked of your kind of how you do it or what you believe, because ladies, I want to be Kim when I grow up. So I need to learn everything you do. Anyway, this is about doing the steps and doing the steps over and over and doing the steps over and whatever. What do you do? Because I know what I do when I have somebody I'm working with, and let's say they have 4 months, 5 months, and then they have like a horrendous relapse. Everything's gone. And now they come back. I usually put them right back to the beginning again, and I'd like to know what you do.
Same thing. So so for example, I like to use examples to like visualize it, because that's how my brain works. If you build a house and a tornado or a hurricane comes through and trashes your house, you don't start patching up the walls. You tear the house down, you fix the foundation, and then you build the house again. Because if you don't, what happens? It's weak. Or there's cracks in your foundation. And if you have cracks in your foundation, something's going to shift and your house is going to fall again. So I'm like, if your house has fallen down, there's a structural problem. So we need to clear the land and fix the foundation and rebuild from the ground up.
Awesome. Thank you. And like what was said in the chat, I just love the way you explain things, Kim. I wish you would have been sober a number of years ago when there was Zoom.
I wish I would have been sober a number of years ago sooner.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a gift. I don't know. My brain works in a funny way. It works good. I love it. Okay, so we are going to hop on to the back of the book now, and we're going to read the spiritual experience because the book tells us to. So it is on page 567. It's Appendix 2, the spiritual experience. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in different forms. Yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. In the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it is not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alliteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With a few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than themselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need to have the difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is a proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Herbert Spencer. All right, so I got lots on this one. So for me, I thought I was the type of, they're describing as an educational variety. As I sit here now, I am telling you I am not. I'm telling you that the first 2 years in my program, I was someone who was not willing, was not open-minded, and was not open. Therefore, I did not have a spiritual experience. A lot of people have the educational variety because it takes them a very long time until they get to that place where they are absolutely willing, absolutely open-minded, and absolutely honest. That, for me, is what an educational experience is. You've just been shut off to this program. Because for me, and this is my experience, the minute I actually went, I want what you have, I want to do the steps the way you did it, and I opened this book and went through it in 2 weeks, word for word, and did this as I'm teaching you, I had a spiritual experience. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't just have it once. I continue to have spiritual experiences and spiritual awakenings because I'm continuing to grow through my effectiveness in this program. I am constantly having moments where I'm like, whoa, leveled up. Ding, 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 I leveled up. right? Because I'm having breakthroughs. I'm not a saint. I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I haven't mastered anything. But I've gotten really far in my education where I've become a bit of, I don't know, I don't want to use the word like with, I'm trying to compare it to life's like, you get a teacher and then you get a vice principal and then you get a principal and then you get a professor and then you get whatever's higher than a professor. So it's like you keep leveling up. But the moment I actually did this program as it was designed, I had a spiritual experience. So for those, and this is my opinion, through experience and through witnessing it, through working with a lot of people, most people who are of the educational variety were shut off before. They weren't completely open-minded, they weren't completely willing, and they weren't completely honest. The moment those three keys click together and open the master lock, you cannot have anything other than an experience. You can. It just clicks. And, that intolerance and that belligerent denial, I hung on to that for a long time. And that's what kept me off from the sunlight of the spirit. More experiences with that. Lucia,
alcoholic. I just want to ask, because a month when I got into the fellowship, when I was in the beginning, I had this like moment where, it's gonna sound hokey to some people, but I totally felt the presence of God. Like it was a moment where I was completely willing to connect with something. It was a big event, but I didn't hang on to it. But is that considered a spiritual experience as well? Or because I always get confused with these definitions of awakening experience.
They can be used part and parcel. It's the same, but it talks about exactly that experience in Bill's story, where he said he had that experience at the cathedral and then it was quickly replaced with worldly clamors in his own mind. So that's exactly what happens. We have these glimpses of the light. We have these things that happen to us where we're like, oh, wow, but we don't hang on to it. We don't explore it more, and worldly clamors come in. All of our crap comes in. All of our denials come in. All of our human questions and all that crap we do in our brain comes in, and it keeps us shut off. But it's, for me, I'm like, I think of it like a game show. It's like, ooh, I got a glimpse behind door number 1. I'm like, what's behind door number 2? This keeps getting better. Okay, what's behind door number 3? So now I'm able to blot out those worldly clamors and keep that out, as opposed to I keep on this path, right? So it's like God shows up. We're like, wow, that's a God shot. And then it was like, oh, but maybe it was this or that. Or, ooh, maybe maybe it was me. It was me. I've been just doing so much work on me. That was actually me. That wasn't God, right? And we do this stuff. That's how our brains work. But yet it was God. And then we've just shut ourselves off. But when we get in tune and we're actually focused, we're like, ooh, that was a God shot. I'm going to pay attention to that. Right. I have a girl and she's struggled and God shot. I'm going to admit a little defect here. So there was a girl that always shares and I just couldn't stand her. So every time she got up to share, I would go to the bathroom. I couldn't sit there and listen to her. And I would get up from the meeting and go to the bathroom every time she shared. Well, this one time I did this and I came around the corner to go to the bathroom in the church and there was a purse on the floor in the hallway. And I was like, ooh, that's really bad, leaving a purse on the hallway in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And then, of course, it was like, my God consciousness is like, well, look down the hall. And I could see a girl on the phone at the other end of the hall, and she was obviously having a bad day, right? There was a reason for me to be there. And it turns out she was falling apart, needed a sponsor. She had actually just called her drug dealer when I walked into the hallway. To her, I was the God shot. For the next 2 weeks, we got into the book. Amazing things kept happening in her life. She started to attribute it to herself, not to God. Even though the first 2 weeks, she's like, oh, God shot. Look at this God shot. I'm like, he shows up. He shows up if you seek him right away. But she blotted that out and was like, no, that was me. I did this. I was doing better. I stopped this. So she took it on her and ended up relapsing. And now she's come back. And God's showing up fast for her again. And this time she's paying attention to the fact that it's God showing up in her life and not the things she's doing that are bringing these blessings to her life. So we're the ones who shut it out, but we get lots of glimpses. And like I said, it's not one spiritual experience. It's not one spiritual awakening. Once you tap in, you keep having them as you level up. It's like the end of the game where the bells all flash. It's like, whoop, spiritual experience, and then level up, and then, life happens and we keep going and we keep growing. But sometimes we get those moments and we're like, wow. And then we just take human credit for it or attribute it to something else, right? But we got to remember always that all these blessings, they're coming from God. The blessings are coming from God and our working His will and His way and helping His kids. And it's amazing. Any other hands on the spiritual experience or any other experiences? Beverly?
Hi, everybody. I'm Beverly, alcoholic. Thank you, Kim, for daring to talk about having a spiritual experience. I know I have mentioned, recently I've taken care of some 9-step amends. I've enlarged my spiritual life through steps 10 and 11, and I share at a meeting that I believe I have had a spiritual experience. And it's like, it's like crickets are just chirping, and everybody's just kind of staring at me. How dare she say she's had a spiritual experience? Well, I do feel as if I've had one because I see things differently. I talk differently to people. I have different reactions. My whole perception has changed. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm, sometimes worldly clamors get in the way and I get afraid. I get afraid of the future. What's going to happen to me? I'm basically selfish, but I really do believe that because of this program, I have had a spiritual awakening and I'm able to help other people. And I'm not being conceited or big-headed about it. I know that I try to comfort to it from humility. And I just want to thank you because I don't hear that subject enough at meetings. It's usually, people sharing me, changing me. And I just want to thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And just touching on some words you used, right? Psychic change, spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. I use these interchangeably. For me, those three things are the same thing. Psychic change, spiritual experience, and spiritual awakening. It's all interchangeable for me. And me not reacting to things, that's a psychic change, which is a spiritual experience. So, I have things happen to me. I have people come at me all the time. Me not reacting is a complete psychic change because what's my go-to as an alcoholic? Oh, screw you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do this. I don't do that anymore. What do? I use my program of recovery. They're a sick person. I've never had a healthy person attack me. Not once. So I know anyone who's doing stuff like that, they're not well. And I pray for those people and I do not react because that's what this book tells me to do. Never argue or retaliate. Why? Because I lessen my usefulness. The one way you can be useful to someone is by not reacting because it goes, whoa, why are they not reacting? Am I an idiot? Yeah, I am. Okay. Back the bus up. But when I start reacting, where does it go? It doesn't really go anywhere. So they are all recorded. I just haven't been able to rejigger the ones that Della recorded to get them up, and I have to do it in order. So yeah, back the bus up. I like that. Okay, 26. A certain American businessman had ability, good sense, and high character. For years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. I just had an idea. I'm going to scrap the forward recordings because those are the ones that I'm stuck on and just upload the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, and this. It just came to me, so y'all gave me thumbs up, so I'm just going to ditch the forwards and start the programmy stuff. Okay, good. Got it. For years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrists. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of a celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Jung, who prescribed for him. Through experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he returned to this doctor, whom he admired, and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion. So love this. So this is a guy, he's like, very amazing in his own mind, but he's an alcoholic. He's fall down. He's got access to everything. So he flies to see Dr. Jung, however you want to pronounce it, who I love and love his readings. And we'll talk about him more as we get into resentments. But so he goes into this treatment and he's got this great confidence. And you see these people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. They're fresh out of treatment again. They're feeling good. They're not sick anymore. They know it all about alcoholism and addiction, and yet they relapse again and again and again. So what do we got here? We've got a little bit of removing yourself from alcohol, making you feel better. You go to treatment for 60 days. You're not going to feel like a bag of crap. You're probably going to get encouraged to go back to work. So you're going to have a paycheck. That is not the promises coming true. That's you doing human things, going to work like a normal person. That's not financially having your financial insecurities relieved. That's you got a job. Having your financial insecurities relieved is when you don't stress about what happens if you don't get a paycheck. There's a big difference. But this is this type of thing where it's like, I did 60 days without alcohol, feeling good. I know what's going on. I got a grasp of my alcoholism. And then you got a little hidden one in there. I like it. It says, he knows the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs. That relapse was unthinkable. You know what that is? Triggers and relapse prevention. And guess what happened? He drank again. The inner workings of your mind and knowing your hidden springs, your triggers, doesn't keep you sober. I'm going to say it again because it needs to be said, because everybody goes to treatment. They're like, I got a really great relapse prevention plan and I know my triggers. That's on this page. That does not keep you sober. Knowing what your triggers are and having a plan gets you drunk. I'm going to say it, and if someone says, can you show me it in the big book? It's on page 26. And it says, again, hidden springs and inner workings of our mind. The next line is, nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. Please, please, please don't rely on a relapse prevention plan and your triggers. You're going to get drunk. Get a program of recovery. A suggested program of recovery. Sorry. I'm funny. Anyways, so then he returns to his doctor, who he respects, and he goes, dude, you didn't tell me at all. You left something out. You're keeping something from me, because I would have stayed sober had you told me the whole story. he doesn't think he's hopeless. He thinks the doctor's holding out on him, right? He's like, what did you leave out? What did I miss? Did I miss page 2? Did I miss a session? There must have been something I missed, right? Because it couldn't possibly be me. But the doctor tells him, oh no, it's you. You are hopeless. You are alcoholic. You're doomed, right? So that's what he gets. He's gonna be dead unless he gets a bodyguard or they lock him up. Heck, I had a bouncer follow me around to make sure I wouldn't do drugs in a bar. And guess what? I found a way around it. Bodyguards don't work. Just saying. Jessica in Oregon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
All right. I'm trying my new laptop here, working this stuff out. Okay, so I have a question. When we're talking about this and it says about this triggers and relapse and how you said that they have a great relapse prevention and to know the triggers, but that doesn't keep us from picking up again. I believe you, and I know that I've had my bottom to not want to pick up, but I thought that I had to know what my triggers were so that I could prevent that from not picking up. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
I thought that I had to know what my triggers were so I would not touch that.
Absolutely, because that's what treatment centers tell us. Treatment centers tell us that we need to know our triggers and avoid them. But guess what? We're alcoholics. This disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It's a disease that convinces us we don't have a disease. It's something where if I go out on my day, I'm going to convince myself that something that's true isn't true. It's going to be different this time. That's how our disease works. So just like when people say, just don't pick up the first drink. The problem with the alcoholic is I can't not pick up the first drink. I pick up the first drink without knowing why. They also say things like play the tape out. Okay, this is what it looks like. I play the tape. I really want to drink because my boyfriend's pissing me off. My boyfriend's my trigger. So I'm going to avoid my boyfriend. And then I go about my day and I try to convince myself how it's going to be different this time. Does that make sense?
That's where I'm at. That's why I'm like.
Yeah. So your brain is always manipulating the truth. That's part of the cunning and baffling disease of alcoholism. So knowing your triggers is great, but you don't have the willpower to be able to overcome those triggers because you're going to tell yourself a story somehow. Has knowing your triggers ever prevented you from drinking?
No, it showed me more about who I was, but I believe that the cunning, baffling, powerful part is exactly where I'm at, to find an excuse.
Yeah, and that's just it, right? So what's my trigger? Oh, my trigger is people that don't know how to put their shopping carts back. Well, guess what? Everywhere I go, there's people that don't know how to put their shopping carts back. Am I never going to go shopping again? That's impossible. It's impossible to avoid these triggers. And then what do you do? Okay, so I know I've got this trigger and it's going to come up. What are you going to do? Run around and avoid life? That's not what this program is about. It's about finding out what our fears are, what our conduct is, so we can change the environment we live in, but which doesn't make us drink. Because our disease is cunning and baffling. How many times I'm never going to drink again and you drank again? Or I am only going to have one glass of white wine and then, well, I had a salad, so maybe the red wine won't affect me this time. We tell ourselves a new truth to our lie or our truth, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm like, I'll just go about my day and pretend like it's not happening.
Yeah.
And no one's better at lying to themselves than myself. So
Yep.
I am going about doing my day with the things I need to do. But the bottom line is the fear. I have that fear that I have to look at, absolutely.
Yeah, and the fear is what, like, we remove the fear when we get to step 4 instead of avoiding it, right? So I'll tell you guys all about my day after the recording. I don't want to do it on recording, but the difference between me yesterday and me today is old me had fears, so I would have been sitting in yesterday. I don't have fears anymore. My fears have been removed. So today I wake up and it's just another day. It's because I don't have fear around situations anymore, so it's not a trigger.
Thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It drives me nuts. Relapse prevention plans and triggers. I'm like, ah! Sharon.
Hi, Sharon, alcoholic. This inner knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and his hidden springs reminds me that elsewhere in the book it says, self-knowledge availed us nothing. I don't remember where it said that, but it did say it.
It says it in How It Works. It talks about it all throughout Bill's story, and we're going to hear a few more stories about how self-knowledge doesn't work. Self-knowledge, self-will, and fear don't help us stay sober at all. And that's what the first basically 3 chapters are trying to drive home. And, you know, there's lots of stories that we're going to read in the next couple days about self-knowledge. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, what was said in the chat is me working on me. Guess what? I can't fix me. I got me here. Okay. But this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic, and I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," the doctor said, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are a phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them." Highlight and underline that. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. That is the description of a complete psychic change. All of your old ideas are cast aside for new ideas. Your old thinking didn't work. Your old thinking got you here. Your old reactions got you here. Your old reactions got you in places where your conduct harmed yourself and others. We need to have a complete change. Not a, "Oh, well, I can still do OnlyFans. I'm not working the streets anymore." For those older folks, that means you're on webcam, not on the street corner. We can't dibble-dally. "Oh, I don't sell hard drugs anymore, but I sell steroids to the guys at the gym because they're not so bad." No, right? "Well, I'm not stealing money at work, but I'm going to take home a ream of paper." No, we can't steal. We can't cheat. Can't lie, right? "Well, you know, even with my legal stuff, well, I'm not going to follow a spiritual action with this legal stuff because that chick's attacking my kids." No, I still have to keep a spiritual course of action. It's a complete change. New set of conceptions and motives dominate us because our old thinking got us here. We need new brain connections to get us this new experience. And it talks a lot about who recovers and who the doctors are unable to help. People that completely relapse over and over and over and over again and go to treatment and go to treatment and go to treatment, they're trying behavioral readjustments. They're trying the relapse prevention. They're trying the trigger warnings. Behavioral readjustments don't work for the real alcoholic. Why? Because we're dealing with a disease in which willpower is not sufficient to overcome. So we need to have a psychic change, not a behavioral change. There's a big difference. Anybody want to comment? Questions? Concerns? Colleen.
Hi, Colleen, alcoholic. When it was talking about that, what you were just talking about, a completely new set of conceptions and motives. I know when I first came into the program, people used to be talking about the spiritual, trying to find the spiritual part of the program. And I was like, the spiritual part, like, so I can steal this, but I can't, like what you were just talking about. And I finally realized that there's not a spiritual part of the program. It's a complete spiritual program. And so for me, it's like trying to find the non-spiritual part of AA was like trying to find the non-peeing part in a public pool. There isn't one. It's all or nothing, right? It's just, anyways.
Oh my God, that's my favorite quote ever. It's true, right? It's true. Can't separate that. Diane. It's just everybody out of the pool. This pool's contaminated.
Anyway, I just got on crazy. I had something to do, and I really, within 1 minute of hearing you speak or read whatever you were doing, felt like a little lift up, and I was like, oh my, it's so important to just be involved in these things, and I should need to get more involved. That's the first thing I want to say, and thank you. But the second thing I want to say is, I actually grabbed a piece of paper and started writing, disease, you need to have a psychic change, not like just a mental change. And I have been so stuck having the same thoughts every day. How could I waste my life with stupid alcohol? How could I do that? How come I not live here? How come, a lot of whiny stuff, if you will. However, I need the psychic change because nothing is changing other than I insist on not drinking day at a time. And so I just feel excited. While I'm home, I want to learn more and change. I guess it's hard because, I drank too many decades away and I'm pissed. But I know that there is such a thing as a psychic change. I really look forward to experimenting and learning more. And so I just want to thank you. And I jotted that note down, which I'll probably lose in a stack of papers for now.
And then you'll find it when you need the reminder.
No, but it was very important what you said, and I actually got a little teary-eyed. And so all I'm trying to, I know it's true. All I'm trying to say is I'm glad to be sober today, and I like that thought, and I woke up so miserable. This is amazing. So thank you so much. I'm going to continue to listen.
So welcome. So welcome. Mary, did you want to say something? Were you waving at me?
No, just doing a thumbs up for all the responses. It's wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's buzz through the last page. Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he had reflected, after all, that he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in this case they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience, which, as we've already told you, made him a free man. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first to be a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or, if you prefer, a design for living that really works. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experiences, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a loving Creator, with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify with themselves with as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair, which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or his present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation on alcoholism as we understood it, then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who were once in this class are now amongst our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and form, from his own point of view, the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, "Yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing." So in there it talks about a lot about, people who have religious convictions or people who have been to church, and how, there's so many different varieties of ways in which we find a God. But the God that we're finding isn't just a belief in a God. It's a relationship with God and an understanding with God. And for me, it's different for everyone. For me, it was gradual. But the only thing required is that we be willing to believe in something. From that, your experience grows and develops. Like when you meet a guy, you don't just meet a guy and get married the next day. Same thing as God. You meet your God. You get to know God. You develop a relationship. You see how the communication works best for both of you. And that relationship grows and blossoms, and it gets deeper and more effective and more understanding. The same with me. I talk about my experience a lot. So at the beginning, I was not having God. I'm a Reformed Catholic. Sorry if that offends anybody, but that's my story. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing God. But I was told I could pick anything. My conception could start from anything if I was willing to believe in something. So I had Oprah Winfrey, God of my own understanding, which was the spirit of law of attraction, The Secret. I was like, I'm going to put good vibes to the universe. Good vibes are going to come back. That was my beginning. It wasn't the greatest, but it was enough for me to start. And from that grew my belief in what I called then a higher power. And I started saying, yeah, I have a higher power. And that was the verbiage I would use. And then my higher power and I got to be more close. And he was like we were buddies. And I started calling him HP. HP's got me. It's all good. And that was my relationship growing. And then all of a sudden, God showed up. And I had this effective relationship with God, and from that, I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more about this person and about this relationship. So I started church hopping. And there's a lovely story, and it's way too long to tell you, about how I ended up to be in church. And it was there the whole time. The whole time. I should do a whole share on that one time, on how I got to the church and the God I'm at, because it's incredible. He was there the whole time, and he had people in my life the whole time in the weirdest places, my kids' baseball team, that were praying for me and guiding me to where I got to. And it was a church and an understanding of my own. But where I get the deepest connection to God is here and here. And in this collective experience that I get to live in, not in a church with four walls and a steeple. I hear lots of great things that I plagiarize and bring into AA and change it up a bit at church. But, that's my story. So we each have a different experience. But when we're sharing, we should be including in our shares how we got this relationship with God. How we applied this program to our life and how it gave us a relationship with God. You don't hear that enough in meetings. The stories in the back of this book are very good examples of how we should share our experience, strength, and hope of how we applied this program to our life and how we developed a relationship with a higher power or God wherever you're at. That is what needs to be shared at meetings. Just saying. And then, of course, the whole point of it is that we want someone to be persuaded enough to say, I want what you got. How'd you get it? Which is what happens while we're here. Courtney. Where'd she go?
I'm here.
Ah, there you are.
Courtney. Hi, Courtney Alcoholic. I just want to go back to page 27. You're talking about like the psychic change and stuff like that. I have an instance, something happened recently where someone said some pretty horrible, nasty things about me and dug into my past and did some pretty good damage to me emotionally. And old Courtney a year ago probably would have ripped her face off, went back and did harm back to her. And I had to sit there and I was like, you know what? This is not God's will for me to harm her. Like, I was just wondering, is that a part of a spiritual awakening, like, or a part of I'm growing? Like, because I would have literally tore this person's face right off.
Yep, psychic change.
Okay, because I sat there, all I said was, okay. That's all I could do. Okay.
Well, and we have to remember what our book tells us. When dealing with sick people, we have to first remind ourselves that these are sick people.
That's what I kept saying to myself.
Yeah, we don't like how their symptoms affect us. What is her symptom in this situation? Her symptom is she's doing your own inventory. None of your business. She's gossiping. This is her symptoms of her sickness. I don't like how they affect him, but the book tells me I do not argue, I do not retaliate, I pray, and then guess what I do? I go off on a TikTok dancing.
Exactly. Loved it.
I've made a TikTok about this very thing. Yeah, right? If we retaliate or argue, guess what? We're hopping in the mud, and guess we can't clean up that mud.
It's drama, and it's bringing chaos back into my life.
Well, not only that, it's unnecessary. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Because my past doesn't define me anymore. I'm not ashamed of everything, and I use everything to help others. And that passage we just read talks about that, right? Where was it? Blah, 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 blah. We hope that no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. I reveal myself all of the time, not to air my dirty laundry, to help people and to show people that there's a different way of life. So, all good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Those symptoms, they affect me all the time, but I know they're sick people. It's all right. My dog, can you hear him shaking himself? It's very loud. Okay. No more questions. Let's serenity prayer it up. Ask all to unmute. Who makes this all possible? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. I will not mind be done. Yay!
Thank you, Kimberly.
Yay.
Aloha, Lisa.
Love you.
And now that we've scrapped the recordings of the forwards, I can load that stuff up so quick.
Yay!
Because it was going from Della's computer to my email, from my email to my MacBook, and then to try to convert it files to get it to go into the iMovie to upload it, and it wasn't working. So,
How do we get to the YouTube?
Just YouTube, and then in the search, go Kimberly M. Vancouver. And remember, my name is spelt weird because my mother is eccentric.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, it's Kimberly M. what?
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
You're so welcome.
Every day that I'm in here, and I appreciate it.